First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Ms. Monica Ridley.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Ridley. I'd like to invite everybody to join me in a moment of silence this evening, and I'd ask that you remember our students who have tragically left us in the first part of the school year, and those who have been injured in the unnecessary accidents on the way to school. Thank you. Any questions on the agenda, members of the board? Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay. Catch up with myself. Hold on 1 second. We'll do spotlight on Thursday and visitors on Thursday. So number 8.
Number 8, Director of Schools Performance Evaluation Instrument 2223, Tab 2. I gave everyone a copy of this for policy meeting, or some meeting we had. We have lots of meetings. I don't know what meeting it was, but it was proposed at that point. And just for the public, I went back and added some items that TSBA recommended, such as recognition of employees, students, celebrations, that different type of thing.
Any questions, comments, members of the board? Okay. Next item.
Number 9 is just the personnel paid holiday, and this is for our 12-month employees. So our certified teachers, this is already a day, it's a discretionary day in their contract. For our 10-month employees that are classified, this would actually not be budget neutral. We would have to add funds to go through and do this with our 10 months. So this is not applied to our 10-month classified, but for our 12-month employees, this is a personnel paid holiday for the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Last year, one of the things we noticed that on social media, we have county government who was closed the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we were still here along with, I believe, the Sheriff's Department. And this is just a request for us to honor our people that are here. The central office in our schools is 12 months to have that day off.
Now, this will be central office, and this will also be certified?
Certified already have this day. It's one of the classified in the central office, but not 10-month at the school level. That would not be a budget neutral thing. We would have to go in and add an extra day of pay for those individuals.
Well, I think we need to be looking at that because
Yes.
it's not fair. We give some employees that day off and not give all of them that day off. So we need to see what that costs.
Yes.
Ryan, can you look at that to see what a...
They currently do have it off, it's just not paid.
Paid, right.
So they actually have it off. I mean, it's a scheduled day for them to be off. It's not a part of their contract, so we would have to add that in to be able to pay it because their number of days do not include that one day. So that's not part of their contract, but we would have to add it in as an additional day. But they currently do have that day off as it stands now. It's just not paid day.
Yeah, I understand. I think we need to look at being a payday, just like the 12-month employees.
Okay, Brian, who, I'm sorry, just help me out here. Who all is paid on this day, Dr. Sullivan?
All certified staff are paid.
Okay.
Currently, for the
Currently.
day off, all certified staff.
This would put in central office, right?
And principals and those individuals who are not on a 10-month contract.
Okay.
It would not cover your hourly people at the school level because that is not budget neutral. We would have to add that, do a budget amendment, and then go through our entire layers to add that.
We see
I'm
how
fine
much
with.
that would be.
Currently, what it's changing is all it's going to be doing is adding. So it's budgeted in already for the 12-month certified. It's already in the budget, so they currently work it. So what we're doing is just basically giving them day off, just like everybody else is. But, you know, like I said, it's paid, whereas in the past, you know, the 10-month is not being paid. So, yeah, we can look and see what that would cost.
Can I ask a question, please forgive my ignorance here, but you mentioned that the classified and, excuse me, 12-month classified central office staff.
Yes.
And SROs? Is that what you said?
Principals.
Principals.
Yes.
So then the 10-month classified would be our EAs.
Correct. EAs, custodians are a 10-month and not the year-round. Food service, and just various support ones we have across the district.
Okay. And is this a unique day, or are there others in the calendar like this?
There are others, but some of them are very traditional that we were in school. One of them, Brian and I talked about, was Veterans Day because he's a veteran, and that is a day that we honor our veterans, but in our district, our veterans work because that is one of the days that we provide in our schools programs that is very beneficial to our community.
Right.
Another one, for example, I believe, was it election day? Those are days that we work, that county government is closed. And we don't match county government exactly, but we're trying to do things to at least bring some awareness to it as well.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Ms. Sharp?
Yes, Ms. Johnson, can we go back to the consent agenda, because I think something was just left off of here, or the facilities of use?
Sure, can we finish this item and then we'll move back to
Yeah,
the consent
sorry.
agenda? Okay, are there any questions, any remaining questions on this item? Okay, we'll go back to.
Apologize.
No, you're fine, just want to make sure we finish it up.
I know that it's been submitted. There's an event that's at Laverne High School with Club Knockout in the community, and I know they submitted the information probably a month or so ago, and so I think it just did not make it to the calendar. It's Club Knockout.
What is it you're talking?
Club Knockout.
We looked at that. Yeah, we looked
Where
at
is
it
it?
this morning. It may be in a tab somewhere, because we verified this morning.
It's on the facilities use.
Okay, the separate sheet.
It's probably it's tab 1, which we don't have printed.
Okay, because so it's not, but it's not on.
It's
the
not on there,
agenda.
but yeah.
It's not listed.
Can you scroll to tab 1 so we can see it?
It is, it's just not listed on the agenda.
Okay, that's why I just wanted to, because it's not.
There,
on
we
here.
verified
on
it this
here.
morning.
Okay, thank you.
Just in a tab,
Okay,
just to verify. Let's make sure. Yep, number 3, facility use.
John, if you click on the facility use, go down, Club Knockout should be there listed under Laverne.
Okay. Can we have those listed
Yeah,
on the
we can
agenda?
print that from now on.
Thank you.
did you want those listed on the agenda for Thursday?
If possible, because if we're going to vote on that, we need to know what they are, even if we looked at them.
You want them listed on the agenda?
Yes, because they usually are listed on the agenda.
Not usually. Usually it's just this.
They're on that tab, and then we can just start printing the tabs.
Yeah, if we could do that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, we're on number 10.
Placement position on the approved salary index. So as part of the salary study investigation, we've identified a few salary classified positions that need to be placed on a board-approved salary schedule. Our communications director position is one of these. Next month, we'll also be looking at some of our accounting positions. The way that salary schedules are supposed to work, and this is really where the salary study came from, was that every position should have an approved salary and an approved index that is approved by the board every single year. We don't necessarily have that with a select group of people who are on a classified exempt. So they are a classified but a non-hourly classified person on a salary. And we don't have necessarily an index for that. And so over the next couple months, we're going to be working to place individuals on that salary index so that then all of our positions will line up and be board approved on a salary index.
And transparent.
Yes, very.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this item?
And again, we'll be looking at, are we going to do, Trey, I think we're doing maintenance next time as well. Aren't we going to look at maintenance and finance next time? So.
Okay. Any questions? Next item.
All right, next is our annual grant for voluntary pre-K program. The VPK grant is used to partially fund our 21 voluntary pre-K programs that are housed at 9 of our elementary schools. 12 classrooms are in the John Coleman Annex in Smyrna, and 2 classrooms are located at Roy Waldron Annex in Laverne. Those classrooms are our highest area of need in our district. All 21 classrooms are at capacity, 20 students per class for a total of 420 students, with more than 90% of students and families served qualifying based on household incomes at or below the poverty line. This program is designed to reach Rutherford County's at-risk early learners. The money is afforded to us by this grant to ensure that all students have supplies and high-quality materials available to them at all times in our VPK classrooms. And I would just add, this is not our integrated pre-K, where we operate that with some of our students, early learners with learning disabilities, and with students who do not. These are 2 separate programs that are run. And Jamie Hubbard usually talks to us every year about this VPK grant, and we did add classrooms this year, so we could add a lot more as well.
It's very popular.
It's a great program. Thank you. Any questions or comments, members of the board? Okay, next item.
All right, next we have policy adoption, legal tab 3. So the below policy changes are recommended on the first and final reading as they are necessary to take effect immediately for implementation during the 22-23 school year. You'll see policy changes, policy 1.108, the nepotism policy, changes the language to allow the director of schools and board chair to tentatively approve exceptions to the policy pending final approval by the Board of Education at the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Policy 1.602, administrative committees, adds length of term for 2 years for policy committee members. Policy 6.300, code of conduct, clarifies discipline for vaping and possession of vapes. Policy 6.400, student guidance program, adds language to clarify standard and services for school counseling. And then we'll have that recommended approval that it has you waive that 2 reading requirement.
Thank you. Questions, comments on those items? Okay. Financial matters?
All right, financial matters, tab 4, so the salary study. So at the request of the board, and I thank you guys for the support on this, Rutherford County Board of Education requests to use Kansas City Public Schools contract RFQ C22-03 for compensation study through Evergreen Solutions LLC at a cost of $64,500. We asked them, John, can you go to the actual contract on there? We asked them to look at several things. One, we were concerned about the time frame. We mentioned that at our last board meeting. We were concerned that we would not have the information back in a time that we could actually use this for the next school year's budget. And so we were able to go off of these and use that Kansas City bid and a couple other districts as well. We were very impressed with their presentation. They work largely in government, largely with school systems. They had dozens of school systems they have worked with, from large to small to urban to suburban. This is really what they do. We asked them to look at a couple different things, and you'll see the task activities that we have presented, discuss with our project manager, and I'm going to serve on that as our project manager, along with our HR and finance, to review our proposed methodology, the approach, and just how we are going through looking at our positions. We wanted to look at some potential problems that we may have, such as staffing, special education, and our classified positions. If you'll go on down, I think we have just their actual areas they're going to look at. And so here are the areas that we really asked them to look at, these task activities: obtain our existing pay structures, discuss the strengths and weaknesses of these, and we have strengths and weaknesses with all of them. Talk to our assistant superintendents about what areas are they specifically looking at, and every one of our assistant superintendents were involved in this. Examine our school level and our central office positions to see how those are funded, as well as classified. Then look at a couple things. So the teacher steps, capping at 21 years. We know that the State Department only covers so many years in what they approve, but that is an area that other counties pay past. We pay pretty well past what is required, but that's an area that we lose teachers to other districts. Looking at, again, adding those central office positions into the pay plan. So there's actually the salary, the classified that we talked about are included in this. And then reviewing our classified position mobility, because we know that we're losing classified positions quite heavily compared to other positions as well. And then just look at the pros and cons of how we are working as a district to get final improvement. This is a 3-stage that they work in. The first 30 days is gathering information. The second 30 days is meeting with stakeholders and to see what is actually needed and gathering information from other districts and other states. And then the last 30 days is developing a plan for them to present to us, hopefully by the end of November. We gave them the target deadline of December 31st, but they feel confident that they can do it before that. So that'll allow us to be in line with our any changes and knowing a little bit of our financial aspects as well with TISA coming on board, we should know a little bit more what we could use to fund some of these positions. And we did specifically ask to look at other states because other states pay differently. And in the time of mobility with classified and certified, we are losing people to other states.
Thank you. Questions, comments on this item? Okay, next item.
All right, so Fund 177, Capital Projects, Budget, Re-budgeting Prior Years Encumbrances. So each July 1st, outstanding purchase orders in this budget or in this fund are liquidated. The funds go to fund balance, which is this fund in account 34685 committed for capital projects. These purchase orders are for projects that had not been furnished by June 30th. This amendment takes those funds out of 34685 committed for capital projects and rebudgets these expenditures for the carryover projects that were approved last year but have not been completed. This year, we have $3,831,851.40 in funds to rebudget.
Thank you.
That is, I was at a meeting today and tomorrow with new directors of schools from across the state, and that is a common theme that we are finding, that there is not enough wage and not enough materials to get some of these projects completed that are even budgeted to get completed.
So not unique to us.
No.
Thank you. Questions or comments, members of the board? Okay, next item.
All right, Fund 177, Capital Projects Budget Amendment, amendment for time-sensitive projects using fund balance and amending new internal projects into already approved ones. This amendment budgets $296,560 from committed for capital projects fund balance to unexpected repair and replacement items. $46,560 is for repair to the Rockville High sewer line. $250,000 is to replace the visitor side bleachers at Blackman High. In addition, $102,000 will be amended internally from the Smyrna Middle School fence to cover the replacement of the pre-K playground at Laverne Lake Elementary, and $95,000 will be amended internally from Oakland pool HVAC to Oakland pool deck and walls. So we looked at the bleachers. We have someone do a bleacher audit every year for us on the safety of our bleachers. And Blackman High Schools, this is their internal gym bleachers that, yes, they are still operational, but it's the visitor side bleachers. Even though they're operational, we want to make sure that we protect the safety of our students, and so we're not allowing anyone on those bleachers right now. It is not going to be ready by the time the volleyball season, of course, is already upon us. We're looking like October, November, even to start the project at the earliest. It is probably going to get us into basketball season as well, so they'll be using one side. They do have the double side, but it's a concern, but this is the quickest we can get it going.
So it's a safety concern.
It is.
All right. Can we talk a little bit about the Rockville High sewer line,
Sure.
please?
So the sewer line that we installed that goes behind baseball and football over to the edge of our property is extremely deep. It's 35 to 40 feet deep. We sign Murfreesboro Water and Sewer, CUD, all the other municipality utility companies treat us like any other developer. We pay for all improvements, and then we turn around and give them the improvements. As part of that, we signed a 2-year maintenance agreement, and they require us to put up a bond, just like a developer does. Like we're going to run away and not come back. They're not going to be able to find us. So we issue a bond, just like a regular contractor does, and it entitles us to 2 years to any repairs that need to take place. This particular sewer line is really deep. Our contractors installed it under the oversight of our special inspector and Murfreesboro Water and Sewers inspector. So it was installed correctly. As we all know, there's a high water table out there at Rockville, and it fluctuates drastically. Sometime over the last 2 years, some gravel has moved around. A portion of the line has developed a sag. Still operational, but it's outside of Murfreesboro Water and Sewers specification. So they require you to dig up the line, raise it up an inch, even though it's 46 feet in the ground, and put it back. Takes a specialty contractor to come in and do this. We had this same situation, Mr. Estes may remember, Mr. Young, at Oakland Middle School in the DeJarnett Lane Road. With specialized equipment, you can dig narrow, deep, fix this sort of thing. The contractors that we typically contract with don't do this kind of work. We put it out for bid, nobody bid it. There are contractors who work specifically with utilities. They don't work for the general public because they specialty contractors. You saw them probably coming in, Triton. They're out of Crossville. They don't work for anybody but you two. They work for Atmos Gas. They work for Smyrna Utilities. They don't work for private contractors. Long story short, we're requesting to do the same thing here that we did at Oakland Middle. Our bond is coming up. We do not want to forfeit the bond, and that's what the purpose of the bond is. If you don't make repairs, it's like an insurance policy from our Spur Water and Sewer. They go cancel your bond, get the money, make the repair with their contractor. We've worked with them before. We are asking to write them a check, basically take this money out of capital projects, write them a check. That's our bond amount, $46,560. They will give us the bond back, which keeps the county's bond rating. They will have their contractor make the repairs. As with Oakland Middle, if it's over $46,000, we don't owe them a dime. If it's less than $46,000, they will write us a check back for the difference. And they did at Oakland Middle. So we've done this in the past. Most jobs, you never hear about it because nothing happens and they give us our bond back at the end of 2 years. Every so often we have one that we can't, if it's something we can repair, we repair it. This, we are not able to repair with our people, so it's best to work with them and let them do it. So that's what we're asking to do.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yes,
the
ma'am.
explanation. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay. Next item.
All right, so number 4, special projects, accountant supervisor position. Finance Department's requesting an updated job description for the accountant supervisor position to include revised language and updated job description.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Easy peasy next.
All right, 14, facilities and construction, tab 5, and some of this goes along with what we just talked about. So amendments for Fund 177. Engineering and construction is requesting to make the following changes to the Fund 177 funds allocation. So 1, water services sewer repair fee for Rockville High School, $46,560. Add Laverne Lake pre-K playground replacement, $102,000. Add Blackman High visitor replacement of $250,000. I think we have those reversed, the water services and the bleacher. Is that correct, Trey? Don't we have the water and the sewer, the bleachers reversed on this one?
Talking about dollar figure?
Yep.
No, sir.
Is that right? Okay.
Blackman's 250,
Okay,
Laverne
just making
Lake's
sure.
102. Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And then add Oakland High pool deck and walls, $95,000. So again, those line up with what we just discussed in number 3.
So I just have a question. It seems redundant. What is the difference between the two motions?
All
We
right,
just
so
doing
the
the same
first,
thing?
we have two different, finance has to do their motion in the accounting way. Facilities manages the fund and moves the money around and does the construction. So we both have to ask permission. I'm asking to do the project, he's asking to move the money.
Gotcha. Partnerships.
That's
Get it.
basically what it boils down to.
Thank you. Felt a little redundant there.
It did.
Any other questions, members of the board? Comments? Okay.
All right. B, Oakland High storage buildings. Principal John Marshall has requested 2 storage buildings to help with material storage to utilize other space in the building. Engineering and construction has reviewed the request and approves. Cost for the 2 storage buildings is $13,724, and the funding will come from general purpose fund maintenance line item.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Will these storage buildings have utilities or no?
Typically, they do not. It's for the materials that can be stored outside that won't freeze, that we're moving out of the buildings so that we can use that storage space for educational space.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the item? Okay, next item.
All right, C, Siegel High and Siegel Middle Mtmc easement request due to the Tdot road project that's widening Thompson Lane. Mtmc is required to relocate the overhead service lines. This relocation will require a new easement from Rutherford County Schools. The attached drawings show the extended easement boundaries required. There is some overlap with the baseball field fence and a small possibility that at some time they may need to take the fence down for repair work and put it back up. Mtmc is a great partner, and should that happen, we'll work together. There's no major conflict at the middle school.
Okay, questions, comments?
What's the timing on this project? When do we think they'll have it done?
Can you repeat the question?
What's the timing on this project? When do we think they'll be have it?
Tdot has not given us a time frame for their start. They're still in the legal, this is part of the legal process. I don't look for them to actually probably start till after the first of the year.
Right in
And
the
at
middle
that
of
point,
spring
it'd take about a
sports.
year.
Yep. Right in the middle of baseball season, Mr. Young is the way they will take that.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Probably
It'll
opening day
be a
would be my
mess
guess.
for a year. And we'll be lucky if it's a year.
Love the positive attitude. Good question. Any other questions or comments? Okay.
All right, D is some very good news. Smyrna Elementary outside classroom request. So Principal Vanessa Ritter is requested to build an outdoor classroom utilizing the following cost breakdown. Dow Smith Construction and their contractors will be donating Phase 1. Engineering and construction has met with the contractor and the school staff to review the request. Based on the documents provided and Mr. Smith's commitment, we approve the project. So Phase 1 will be a usable structure for the school, and the remaining phases can be added as funds are raised. This project is at no cost to the board. So you'll see Phase 1, site preparation, building of the concrete stage and rails and electrical circuits for the outdoor plug to the stage, $100,000. Phase 2 is $40,000, building of the roof structure and rear wall on the stage. Phase 3, $8,000, building and install of 16 benches for outdoor classroom. Phase 4 would be $20,000, building and install the 8 visual barriers and benches. And Phase 5, $15,000, install the posts and sunshades at the 2 sides of the stage. This will be a multi-year project. That they are involving the students in every aspect of this. When I went out last spring, they were talking about how excited they were for the multiple years so the students could see the actual engineering process at work. And of course, they are our first STEM designated school, so it goes well. We appreciate partnership with Dow Smith and just the community in general, because there'll be other partners as well.
That's remarkable. Dow Smith and his company have done a lot of great things for our schools. They're a very good partner to us. It's a big donation as well.
Yes, huge.
100,000. Any questions or comments, members of the board? Okay, next item.
All right, E, CMTA design fee proposal for Rockville Elementary and Stewartsboro Elementary. As part of the Fund 177 approved projects for the 22-23 school year, the HVAC projects for Rockville Elementary and Stewartsboro Elementary Engineering Construction is requesting to utilize CMTA. Design fees are attached. All funds for CMTA would come from the Fund 177 approved funds for each project. CMTA is the firm to provide the energy audit as an approved vendor.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Okay.
And I appreciate Trey and our team knocking out some of these deferred maintenance projects that we need to get before things fail. So we're moving forward with some of that extra funding, and appreciate the board moving some of that funds this year.
Absolutely, thank you. Next item.
F, maintenance overtime pay. So at this time, all personnel who work over the allotted 40 hours per week are credited with comp time. Maintenance personnel who are called in after hours are also compensated the same way. They cannot do their work remotely and must come into the district office. Engineering would like to propose to pay them overtime when they're off campus and called back in. This would help offset the cost of fuel for them to come back in and then back home. If they're still here, they would still receive comp time. So this is just for our maintenance staff, because that's the conversation we wanted to have. If we have something that breaks at night, our maintenance staff have to drive their personal vehicles back here, and then they are just receiving overtime, or sorry, they're receiving comp time, not overtime, and that didn't quite seem fair to our employees to leave in the middle of the night to take care of an issue and only get comp time when realistically we can't give some of them comp time anyways.
Wow, okay, so, and I totally think that's an absolutely appropriate change. What realistically or ballpark can we expect for the fiscal impact?
Less than 25,000
Okay.
is what Trey and I have talked about. Great.
Yes, sir.
And the industry outside,
Absolutely.
they always get paid.
Always get paid, yes.
Yeah, I think this is the wage and labor law, isn't it? I mean,
Well, the comp time that they were receiving satisfies the wage and labor law, but it doesn't put any money in their pocket. It gives them time off. So we are compensating and meeting that, but with the fuel prices that we have now, they're basically driving in and going home and receiving comp time, which means they get to take off, but it doesn't help them financially, other than getting a day off to go fishing or whatever it is they want to do. And I think they deserve the day off. But it doesn't help them. And I met with them because a couple of them they didn't have a solution. They just brought the situation to us, and they said, you know, we're driving a pretty good ways. And I said, well, what if I can get you paid when you're gone? You know, if you go home. Classic example, today I got 4 guys that were at home. We found out we got sewer coming up out of the floor at Laverne High. They're driving from wherever they live to Laverne to take care of the situation. Well, under our current situation, the gas is coming out of their pocket. So if the way we've structured this, if they've left and gone home and they get called in, we pay them overtime. In other words, the money gets added to the check. If they're here or they haven't left yet and we have to work overtime, they will receive comp time because they're not out anything. They're already here like a normal day. So this was a compromise. They thought it was a good idea. They were all very happy with it. So this is what we brought forward.
Very good.
Is that it's really more of a mileage situation, right? So could we just pay them mileage and allow it? I don't know how much trouble it's going to be to track that. I'm not opposed to anything, but.
It's not, because we have, what we do now, because of the time system, they can pull in a parking lot with their phone. The first school they come by and log in, which shows us that they're here. We have the work order to back it up. I think the overtime pay, it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy. I can go in, or Mike can go in the next morning and verify, yes, work order, whatever, they came in to work overtime on a sewer, and it's approved. And as long as we do it that way, accounting doesn't have to do anything because it's already programmed in on our system, whether it's overtime or comp time. They have an O or a C, and we can click it and change it.
And I do appreciate our finance department and especially payroll, because that was one of the things we talked about yesterday is, our payroll system, does it allow this? And it goes back to, as a principle, you never let your master schedule or a computer tell you what you can and can't do. And I felt the same way with our time clock. It should never tell us what we can and can't do.
Right.
And so I appreciate them finding a way to make that work.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on this item? Absolutely. Okay, next item.
Maintenance warehouse and material center position. The engineering and maintenance department would like to reclassify position from maintenance warehouse to warehouse material center due to growth in schools and a large number of packages being left on our back dock. We need to have someone at the dock most days. This isn't a request for an additional position, and there's no extra cost requested. But we currently have 3 people for our department back there, and if usually they are out in schools delivering things all day long. And it's gotten to the point that our delivery people, who we appreciate, but they're not our employees, and they just drop things off. And we have a lot of supplies that cannot just be dropped off and left at a dock somewhere. So this is taking a position and moving it there to be able to help when our people are out.
Okay. Questions, comments on this item? All right, next item.
You just imagine your house with a lot of Amazon packages times 1,000, and that's what it can look like back there.
Sounds like fun.
Without air conditioning. Yeah. So, all right, next, radio tower request for high schools and possibly others, and we just wanted some direction on this. This has been a request multiple years by different boards over the years about installing radio towers at some of our facilities, and we just want direction on where to go. Trey, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, sir. We basically got 2 or 3 companies that are beating my door down, and I'm keeping them away from y'all. Because in the past, it has not been something that the board was looking to get off into, because you create easements, you have contracts. I put in the packet 2 pictures. One is of a tower system that goes on a light pole like at a football stadium, and then the other is they would require basically a 75 by 75 fenced area with a 150-foot triangle radio tower on our property somewhere. There is a possibility that we can get some rent from it. It depends. You're going to start out somewhere in the $800 a month, maybe, up to $1,500 to $2,000. Depends on how many carriers they put on that. There it is, on that individual tower. There's some that look like lamp posts that can go in. We had one at Central Magnet not long ago that we all voted no on, and the city turned it down as well. If you all are interested in looking at this kind of thing, or you want me to pursue it, I mean, and I don't want to be flippant about dollars. You start talking $850 to $1,500 a month times 12 months, it's not large dollars that we're looking at. And do we want to tie up our school systems with these type things? If you all don't want them, I'm more than happy to keep them at bay. if you all want them as a way to earn a little bit of money, it's not going to be a lot of schools. They're going to tell us that, we're going to do all these sale things and we can get you, 15 to 20 schools maybe. I think they're looking at maybe 4 to 6, and I can probably tell you where they are to start with. And it may be a long time before we get any more than 4 or 6. Then the money that you're getting, is it worth this? And who gets the money? Does it come in to go to the regular fund, or does the school get a portion of it because it's on their property? It creates a lot of things for you all to decide. So I'm bringing it to you because it's coming back. I've got, 2 different firms that have kind of been knocking on the door for about a month and a half. I had another one reach out yesterday. I just need y'all's direction on whether you want to pursue it or you don't. And I'm bringing this is basically what we're talking about, is these 2 types of towers and the money that you'd be looking at as far as rent goes. It's all based on the number of carriers they can get on the tower. They're guaranteeing starting with 1 and the 850, and then after that, I don't see it going much past $2,500 or $3,000 a month.
Comments from the board?
Was it, refresh my memory, was it Comcast, AT&T that was last year that we voted down?
I've got Comcast, AT&T, and I've got a private entity that's like a broker that basically acquires this, puts up the front end, and then they pay us a percentage of what they get from the carriers. And they would have anywhere from, they may have Verizon, AT&T, Dish, Direct. They may have 7 or 8 carriers on there. At, however many they can sell to is what they'll sell to.
Is that going to cost more money as far as our landscaping if they have to do special things around their fence or what have you?
We would just have to allow them to have access, and they would be responsible for keeping the grass inside the fence. We would be responsible on the outside.
Can they do outside too?
Sir?
Can they do outside too?
If they could, I'd hire them.
Yeah, can we expand that contract?
Does this, I assume there'll be some sort of liability clause where we're not liable if
That is
anything
correct.
falls or
That is correct, yes, sir.
But since we're a government entity, how well does that liability hold?
They have a lot of government, predominantly most of these companies deal with government agencies because we have the land
Okay.
and we have the lights.
I was just concerned that it doesn't open us up any
I
liability.
wouldn't think so, because most of their clients are either Tdot, they've hooked up with, one of the companies has got to deal with Ohio Department of Transportation because they've got towers along the interstate. There again, it's ready access along the interstate system, so they rent the pole space from Ohio Department of Transportation. Colleges, high schools, some of your smaller counties that are rural, there's not much in that area that has height except for a county football stadium. And $2,000 or $3,000 a month is a lot of money to them. And I'm not saying that's not a lot of money for us, but you're $30,000 to $45,000 a year is what you would be looking at achieving, and we'd probably be looking at 4 to 6 maybe.
My past experience here, it's not been seen as favorable. I mean, neighborhoods don't like it. Schools worry about the kids' safety. I just think we'd be giving up a whole lot for a little bit of money. So.
And that's always been the board's stance. I wanted to come back again and ask to see if the board has changed their mind. And as long as the board has not changed their mind, I'm going to keep them away from knocking on your door. That's why it's for discussion. There's no motion. You all can give me some direction, and that's the way we're going to go.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, direction for Mr. Lee? Okay. Next item.
Next is our design updates to Riverdale, Smyrna, and Oakland, and something that I met with several of our principals yesterday about this, and I need to meet with Dr. Sutherland as well. These are very much still in the planning stages, so we will be getting with our principals to see what what suggestions they have. I talked to Mr. Lee about that yesterday to see if there are changes that we need. Some of them we may not be able to make, but we'll get with our accountant, well, not our accountant, I mean, Brian's important, but we'll get with our architect to see if any of these can be made as well and talk to the principals, because we want to make sure we respect their opinions, but also respect what's fiscally responsible. So, Trey?
Yeah, and the main reason I brought these back for tonight is we've got our first blush through with the State Fire Marshal's office, and if you'll notice with Oakland or Riverdale, the addition was up against the existing building. Now it's kind of centered in the courtyard, so it's not as straight a shot. We can still do everything we planned on, but the State Fire Marshal's office originally told us, yes, we can build a 4-hour wall, and we'll build them up next to each other. Now they've backed up. They said, no, you got to have 60 feet of separation, so so that's the main change at this point. We've still, our consultants are still meeting with staff here. We had met with Brian Lewis and Eric Smith and those kind of folks with our consultants, so we're beginning to put those pieces of the pie together. Probably about another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be ready to go back and visit with all the principals again. Sit down, say, okay, this is where we are now. What do you want to change, or what do you see that we missed, on what you told us the first go-round? So we're hoping to go back to see them here in the next 3 weeks. While we're on that, at the last board meeting, Mr. Reed and I were requested to get with Mr. Beatty on the property out there at Blackman. We've begun those negotiations. We started out with the whole corners like 74 point right around 75 acres. There's been some discussions that plus, minus, yes, no. Direction from the board is the intent still to purchase enough land to build 2 schools. Gives Mr. Reed and I direction. That's the first question for that school.
Why do you ask?
Because there's been some discussion on how much land we need.
Do we not need to build 2 schools?
From a system standpoint, the most land we can get to build schools, or at least have the option to build schools,
just
the
like
better.
Whitworth, Buchanan, and Walter Hill, if we don't build it right now, not going to hurt to have it for the future. So, but there again, the discussion was we were buying land for 2 schools. And I want to make sure that's the case.
I think we need to buy as much land as we can on the Beatty property.
Okay, that's what
Is that what everybody else thinks?
that's what I want.
Did I make that up?
Was it 135 acres before? Was there a different?
No.
No, ma'am,
it
it's
says
75.
Okay.
75.
Yeah.
So there's an elementary school just down the street. So you're talking middle and high school on this property?
No.
Or elementary and middle?
It would be an elementary and a middle. Elementary could be some years down the road. It could be a middle and then an annex. It could be
A STEM school.
AA.
I'll throw it out
Could be a
there.
STEM.
We have to look outside the box, and if we have to go back and look at different grade band structures for that building, if it's a new building, then it's not a perfect scenario, but if we have to look at doing something that's 612 instead, then I think we have to look at those different types of things now.
And that would give you
Something
flexibility.
different. We could do something different.
That's what I'm saying. It gives us flexibility. If we buy just enough for one, we're kind of boxed. So I'm asking, that's all you all just say, yes, we'd like the flexibility. We want as much as we can get, and that's all I need to know.
We want as much as we can get, and then we can start thinking outside the box. How about that?
Okay, that's fine. I'm just, there again, Mr. Reed and I are looking for direction. The other piece of property that we were asked to call back, we have made contact with the city. There has been a little movement. We're not prepared to go very far off into that today, but there has been some movement. So there is still a possibility, and I'll come back at a later point to say this is either the city saying no, or this is what the city says they're willing to do.
And please know, I'm not advocating to change any grade band structure of any schools. I just want us to be aware that as we grow and we get bigger and we are stuck looking for space, we may have to look at things differently than us being cookie cutter across the board.
You said it tonight.
And
We
there's
need some new
nobody
ideas, so sometimes we
that
find ways
is
to do.
stuck on grade band as much as me. And I still think we may have to think outside of the box. I mean, our backs are against the wall. And even I'm not screaming about changing something a little bit. So we just have to think differently.
I don't disagree, I just wanted to be clear of what we were talking about. So if we're doing the more traditional model, then there are questions, but if we're talking about thinking outside of the box or an alternative type facility, that's fine with me.
See what we can get first.
Absolutely, yep. What we can get land-wide depends on, I think, the direction.
Ask for the pony when we want the watch.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions, comments on this item? Okay, next.
All right, next, just transportation update. So bus status, we still have several of our buses that we, as the beginning of the year, and we thank our parents and students and everyone for being patient. Our transportation department has done a great job as far as going through and making sure we moved routes to get overloaded buses, because you never know who all is going to be necessarily taking bus transportation until the first couple days of the year was. So we still have several changes that we are making through that as bus routes, moving routes around. We'll have a position update for you on Thursday as we choose our director. And then one thing for discussion, I think that Mr. Lee, and you can go back and add any of these things you wanted to, Mr. Young had asked about special ed bus pickup for bus aides versus the first stop, about where would they best for them to get paid from.
Okay, so the bus status, right, we started out the year with 22 buses overcrowded. That's higher than normal, but we had a higher influx off the bat this year on our transportation than we normally have. We've worked through 9 of those in the first week. The ladies have done phenomenal work, working additional hours. We currently have 13 that we're working on. We're hoping by the end of this next week, we'll have the majority of those solved. We do have some growth position buses in our budget. We're trying to hold off as long as possible, but we do not want to endanger anyone. So if we see the need, we will add the routes as we see them, but we're hoping to address most of these with shifting ridership to other buses and adjusting routes. So that takes care of number 1. The bus pickup, there was a question came from Mr. Young from a bus contractor, and it has to do with our special education buses. And currently, all bus contracts start when they pick up their first child. That's where their route starts, and in the morning it stops when they get to the last school. In the afternoon, it starts at the first school and ends with the last child. A large number of our special education buses have bus aides due to the abilities of the children that ride the buses. A number of these buses pick up Atlas students as well, and sometimes, most of the time, they pick up an Atlas student or 2 first, and then somewhere along the route, they meet up with their bus aide, the aide gets on the bus, and then they ride till the route's over and they bring them back to their car. The conversation was, could the route start when they pick up the bus aide? On average, this would add about 10 miles, we think, based on looking at an average route of where they're picking up their aides and where their bus is housed. If we were to make that change, it would add about 10 miles to each route. 48 buses, averages, that would be about $180,000 before fuel increase. Now, if we were to consider this concession, the route, the aide starts meeting the bus contractor where they park the bus, the route starts there. So instead of meeting them halfway on their route, the aide changes where they meet them and meets at their house, then that's where their route would start now.
Where the bus is housed.
Yep.
So you're talking about deadhead miles.
It could be.
You're talking about deadhead miles for a percentage of bus
That's
drivers.
potentially what could happen. And in this contract, We did increase the sped minimum routes. You know, we did a lot of things to try and counteract this to help us on the north end with our big buses as well. Based on what we think right now, it's a minimum of $180,000 impact, plus fuel. It's not something I don't think we could do this year because we're already under contract and budget. It would have to be something that we looked at going forward, starting next year. But it's a pretty big number.
I appreciate the information. That's something we need to work out with our contractors and make sure and we need to ask them the question, which way they'd rather prefer, you know.
I know which way they're going to prefer it.
But if there's something we can do to meet them in the middle, maybe we can look at that, you know, I don't know. But at least we'll have some information, some data.
Yep, and we can look at it further, you know, when we get closer to budget time, we'll re-look at it again because we'll have more routes and more data. But based on the information we have today, it'd be about $180,000 plus fuel.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate the information, and I can appreciate why this is being asked, but the unintended consequences, and we've seen this in other areas, and I do appreciate our contractors and all that they do, but we start that deadhead conversation again, and then you have all of our contractors, that just is, there's got to be a negotiation that clearly states why and whom. You know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's a very difficult conversation to have, and you certainly don't want to make anybody feel underappreciated, but I don't envy you in the future on having to make this decision.
And it wasn't part of our contract negotiation to add this as well.
So,
I have-
question. Do the bus aides, they work for our system, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so the bus drivers are not paying those aides, has nothing to do with it.
No, sir, and they
bus
usually
aid.
try and meet somewhere that's convenient for both parties, the aide and the driver.
Okay.
And we do have some aides that, you know, may have been on one bus but live on the other side of the county, and there's another bus over there, and sometimes we swap aides with buses to make it more convenient for them, because they don't get paid till they get on the bus either. So we're trying to make it as convenient, and it is very difficult with as many buses as we have. Make it as convenient for the aide and for the bus driver as we can, because we're trying to help them both out.
So now, regular buses do not have aides, is that true or not true?
That is correct.
Okay, only the special ed buses
Yes, sir.
have the aides?
Yes, sir.
I think there's a lot of contractors who drive regular buses that would appreciate an aid on their bus, so
Oh,
that's the other part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure and clarify what.
Ms. Sharp, thank you for your patience.
No worries, thank you.
I'm sure it's needed at times.
Mr. Lee, this is kind of out of left field, but this morning while I was out walking my dog, and I have a small neighborhood, there's more children moving into my condos, and I watched them go to, it's a new bus stop, because usually the bus stop's right there by my house, and there's a new one, and it's on near Shrivman, and I watched who appeared to be a teenager try to get to the bus stop across near Shrivman, and all the accidents and everything that we've had recently, I'm really concerned. I'm not saying this is your problem to solve, but what do we do to bring awareness, put a stop sign up, or put a sign that says bus stop or something, because those cars, I was almost taken out by a car that was being chased by the police on that street back there just a weekend ago. So that area it's just as complicated as 231, and it's a 2-lane road.
Yes, ma'am, and it's not just there. I would
know.
love for everybody to live in transportation one morning or one afternoon with us. I'm not, their offices are behind mine, but I have a radio and I listen to every transmission all morning and all afternoon. It is amazing to me this year how many drivers, when I would think everyone knows when a bus is stopped and their stop bars are out, unless you're on a divided highway by grass, you stop. Every single day, numerous times a day, we have bus drivers call in, and they're good at it. They get the license plate number of the car who runs their stop bar, they radio it in, depending on where it is. Our dispatchers call, whoever, county, city, whoever it may be, and report. It's a problem. And it's all over the county. There is no one place, and maybe we would get the new transportation person, we could do a Sunday, or whatever on transport, pay attention to it. And we do send out things to schools. The schools help us, watch for stop buses, got their stop arms out, public service information, maybe we can try and do some things. But you are correct, it is a problem throughout the district.
And this child was just trying to get across the street to get to the bus stop. The bus wasn't even there. And it took him a long time to get across those 2 lanes to get to the bus stop. I mean, they just speed through there. So I don't know what the solution is, but we need to look at, everybody needs to come together and look at something to see if we can't reduce the opportunities that we're seeing.
We do, and that's one of the things that does take us a little bit of time because so many children are not registered. When they do get registered and they get put in our system, it takes a day or two, and then they start showing up. And our routing system, one of the things that we're going to be asking for this year is is to be able to update our routing system. We need to update that. The county is adding roads and streets daily, GIS and those kind of things. They lag behind, so we hear from parents they live on a street that's not even in the GIS 911 system yet. So we're literally talking to these parents, where's your street, what's it off of? We're drawing on our system to get streets added to it. So it is very difficult. One of the things that we are looking at is, does the new technology of these new systems tell us when a child stop is across the street? Because if you pull up at a bus stop and a child's at the stop on the door side, and they get on and they get off, and as a driver, you don't see them cross the street. We have a procedure that if a driver sees a child cross the street to go to the other side of the street, they'll literally watch them to see what house they go to. Then we have a procedure where they radio in to dispatch to give us a child's name, its address, and the street location, and we look at that route to see, can we double that bus back? And we try and do as many stops as we can door side. Unfortunately, some of our rural areas and some of our subdivisions that are in development, they don't put a temporary gravel turnaround so that we can turn a bus around. So we can't get 2 sides of the street. We can only do one side. So we're trying to look at all of those things and pick the side of the street whether the bus is going down so that it stops on the right or it stops on the left. And we may change a route and have it go around the block differently so that it's coming back the other way, if at all possible, to get stops on both sides. But it's maximize the size of my bus and all the children that I can put on it, and I got to do it all in 90 minutes. So it's a difficult thing to do, but if you would email me with the address,
Okay.
And that's what we
Okay,
ask
yes.
people to do. Be patient with us. Send us an email with an address, and we'll be glad to look at it and see if there's something we can do.
And I'll just tell you, it's a very congested area, and I don't think, I see why they're going where they're going and why the bus stop is there. I completely see, because it goes right across to Murfreesboro Road, and they probably go Murfreesboro Road to the left. They could double back, but they would never get out of 73rd Street. Never. I mean, it's just so congested there.
But there again, we try and make the best decision we can, but with addresses, we do look.
Right, and I think y'all are doing a great job and everything. I'm just saying, we have so many opportunities out there with.
Yes, ma'am, we do.
I have a quick question. It's not about that, but I met with a lady last Thursday who just moved here from out of state, had an 8-year-old daughter, and she froze, and she couldn't remember. They lived in Indian Hills, and her daughter got off at the wrong spot. It was somewhere else down the way. They found her. She wasn't really lost, but
She was for a short
she was
period of time.
lost for a short time. But is there any way, that the bus drivers for the elementary school especially can have a roster and
Well-
maybe call out that first week?
Here's the problem. It's a, Dr. Sullivan and I have already talked about this already. Our smaller children don't know their address, they don't know their phone number, they don't know where they live, they don't know how to get there. The first week or two of school, our drivers don't know who they are because they're new children. Now, a child that's a third grader that rode that bus as a second grader, they know that child, they know its parents, they know the stop. But the new children, they don't. And even if you call that child's name out, about 40% of them don't speak English. And our drivers are older, and they don't speak Hispanic, Arabic, Egyptian, whatever the case may be. We're working on a solution. We don't have it nailed down yet, but we're working. Dr. Sullivan, I'll let you come in.
Yeah.
But we're looking for a solution because it used to be just the elementary children. Now it's swung over into middle school and high school because they don't know their addresses either. They're newly moved here. And here's the biggest problem. About 40% of those children were registered on Friday. And they may or may not even be in our center. They're getting to school. We're getting them there because we pick up any child at any stop and we take them. But they don't know which stop they get off, and they can't help us. The last week, every afternoon, I've got bus drivers going, they walk their bus at the end of their last stop because they don't want to leave their route and go park their bus and then find out they had a child asleep on the back of the bus. So we stopped last year, started, when you get to your last stop, I don't care if it's in the middle of Murfreesboro Road, keep your stop bar out, get up, walk your bus. And what they're finding is they'll find a small child that has gotten on there. They're not always asleep, they're just scared.
Mm-hmm. That's what this child
They don't know
did.
where
She
they
froze,
are.
and she didn't.
They don't know where they are. They freeze, and if you call their name, they still won't answer. So we're looking at a way that we can identify some way that the child can get on the bus, give something to the driver, so that the driver at least knows a name and has an address. And if we have a name and an address, we can get that child home till the child is comfortable enough. But we're working on a way, and I'll go ahead and let you speak.
We'll have that district-wide because that is something that we do because our bus drivers are contracted. We can't give them all the information that an employee would get. But we even in looking at bringing secretaries possibly back a week earlier so that we can tell new students and new parents to come register your child so we can enter that information right
That would
then.
be very helpful.
Those are
This
things
mom,
we can do.
She acknowledged that all that information was in her daughter's backpack, but she did. She froze.
She didn't know what to do it. And see, they used to put it on the outside of the backpack. Now it's on the inside because they don't want the child, a bad person to see that information on the child's backpack. So the parent puts it on the inside where the child can't remember, freezes, gets whatever. We had a child yesterday. I've got, in the middle of all of this, trying to get everybody home. A mom calls desperate. They just moved here. This child was supposed to be on a bus. We're doing all calls. We're looking for. This child never got on a bus. Once they figured out who the child was and the mother sent the school a picture of the child because he's new. The principal was able to follow him on our security cameras to see that he did not go. He's a middle schooler. Did not go to get on the bus. He went to the car rider line.
Oh.
Well, mom wasn't there. He was first day. He was embarrassed. Didn't want to go back in. He walked home. So I've got our dispatchers that are trying to dispatch and get kids, and we're trying to find a child. Fortunately, the mother was she called back. She said, my child just walked through the front door. We walked from Siegel over to Siegel Park. Now, that's a pretty good hike. He got home. This child knew his address, and I'd say he probably put it in his phone, and it took him home. But these are also the kind of things that we deal with on a daily basis. Nobody did anything wrong. The child went to the car rider line, mom expecting mom wasn't there. Well, I'm not going to go back inside. I'll just go home.
There's a lot more to it than.
Please come sit
A
with me.
lot of moving pieces.
I did want to ask, and maybe this is a Patty question, I don't know, but I thought I saw where law enforcement, local law enforcement, I don't know if it's the sheriff's department or if it's Murfreesboro PD is doing some kind of monitoring or what, they're stepping up early for the dismissal times, back to the point about people running the stops and for the buses when the arms are down. Is there not some kind of a campaign with our local law enforcement officers right now? There is.
I saw the same thing.
Yeah, Tennessee Highway.
Is it the highway patrol? Okay. So
Guys, there's like a task force that's working on this, because we had to shoot some PSAs for it about a week ago. It involves multiple law enforcement agencies.
So I thought I had seen something. So there is an effort in our community to address the deep concern. And yes, we do appreciate you guys and all the efforts that's being made.
Absolutely.
Okay, that was a lot.
That was.
Moving on.
Yep, so we're
Next
going
item?
to stay with buses. So,
sticking with the
yeah,
buses.
Rutherford County Board of Education extended sessions bus contract for 22-23. Transportation submitted the extended service contract for fall session 22-23 school year. The contract's the same as the one last year with changes to page 2, section 1.3, adding uninsured motorist insurance language, and page 7, section 5.2 for the compensation dollar figure of $225 per day. Also, section 5.2, operation and closure change.
Okay, questions, comments? Have we heard enough about buses? Thank you to all of our transportation department and all that you guys do. It's a lot. Next item, financial report.
Can we skip over that one and then go to insurance first? Wait for Ms.
Yes.
Sharp to get back so we can all be on the same page. Dr. Anthony, insurance?
Yes, our pre-65s, they're being registered before for their open enrollment through the 26th of this month, and then for everyone else, we'll be doing open enrollment the Tuesday after Labor Day through the 31st of October. And so the ladies are going out to the schools and setting up appointments to do that, as well as right now registering the pre-65s.
Thank you.
And I would just remind everyone that we will have hiccups, I'm sure, as we're moving into a new insurance plan, trying to roll so many thousands of people into that on a short-time basis. But if employees will just let us know, then we'll work through those one by one as we can. Can we skip on down to TLN and FRN? And then
Yes.
come back and I'll do my two together.
Sure.
Yes,
Ms. Maxwell?
I have something for Thursday,
Perfect. For both?
or both.
Okay, you're up.
Go ahead then. First and foremost, just of course our start of the school year. So this is our second full week. So thank our staff across the board for everything that they have done, and thank you to the school board for your support. So our parents and students, again, we thank you as well. We know that we've had several issues like you would in anything when you were starting a huge operation. So one of those being the grass that we have talked about. So we have 4 zones that we have for our contractor, and that's a contracted service for our grass. And we have sent letters to those contractors letting them know that the performance we were receiving was not up to par. We will only be paying for the services that we have received. And so we're supposed to get 3 times a month. Trey has gone back on camera, and the ones that did not show up once, twice, they are only getting paid for the ones that they are actually cutting grass for. So
How are we addressing that moving forward, though? Are we holding them to their contract? Because obviously,
we are, and we're going to rebid that as well. Our problem right now is that even in some of the ones that we've asked to tell them, you know, it's to the point they are struggling with the labor as well. And they're very much to we aren't making the money to even be feasible to work with our school system. So it is in no way, shape, or form up to what we would like for it to be. But we also realize that if they were to walk, then we would be in a worse shape than we are right now.
can I ask if that has anything to do with some of our schools choosing to purchase lawnmowers?
Those shouldn't be, no, those should not be, no. Not.
Those mowers typically are used inside the fence, athletic fields. The contract mowers mow outside the fence. They don't go inside. We have had a couple of companies that have reached out asking to come in and help. The problem comes in is taking money away from a contract. We can withhold certain parts, the part that they don't mow, but they bid this contract 2 years ago, and if their bid is, and I'm gonna pick a dollar figure, $1,200 for Brown's Chapel Elementary, and this new company wants $2,000 to mow it. We only have $1,200 available because of our budget. So I can't exceed the budget. I can take the $1,200 away from them, but if they want $2,000, I can pay them to mow half of it. we have encouraged the contractor, and he has picked up a couple of companies that are going to come in and help him in the short term to get him caught back up, and he's going to pay them direct. That's the cleanest way for us, because we don't have to deal with 2 or 3 different contracts. We would also have to bid it out. By the time we bid this out, we're going to be out of the season. Now, believe you,
We have talked about grass more than I ever care to talk about
I-
grass again in my life.
we're going to rebid all the sections. We're going to bid them all over again this spring. We're also going to make a change that you can have no more than 2 sections. And we're going to go from there. I do expect it to go up. I'm going to try and bid it before budget, and have them use our current gas prices. We have to take them, it's about a 3 or 4 day process, because you have to take them to every school. We have to show them the boundaries and what mows and what doesn't mow. We rent vans every time we do this. It's not a fun proposition, but we're going to do it again this year. And we're going to divide
Yes,
it
we
in.
are.
We have it into 4 zones, because I told Dr. Sullivan I am not talking about grass next year at all.
Okay.
Sorry, wanted to give that update about grass.
Appreciate all the work.
Yes.
I
Next,
have one comment.
yes.
Is there a way we could look at doing fuel surcharge for these guys like we do our bus contractors?
Yes, sir, we can. We do that in some of our other contracts. We would have to do it based on, we would have to come up with some kind of industry standard for a gallon of gas is so many hours, and then they would have to tell us how many hours. It's not as clean. With what we do with the bus contractors, it's very easy because we follow what the feds and the state does. We just follow their same motto, change the dollar figure for our baseline, and go forward. There's really nothing out there for, we could set a baseline, but how much, I'm going to have to do some research to find out what that baseline is and how we would increase it. But it is something we're going to look at. It's also affecting other places. We have contractors that have been working for us. One, and I'll use his name, is Bill's Carpet out of Manchester. He's been working for Rutherford County Schools for 16 years, and all he does is carpet and flooring and that kind of thing. He's turning in his contracts this week. He called me today almost in tears. He said, I've been doing y'all's work for 16 years. I'm turning in my contracts. He said, my material suppliers won't hold their price. They're going up another 30% on VCT, and they'll only hold their price for 30 days, and we're asking them to hold their prices for a year. So I'm trying to figure out with what other districts are doing, or do we begin to just have to bid out every single, and it'll kill the purchasing department, and it'll kill my department. If I got to bid out every office that gets carpet, it'll be, I don't know what we'll do.
Trey will have
But I
his
don't
own
have a
separate board
solution.
meetings if we have those.
Do we have to have carpet? Can we not do the concrete with the painted?
We can. We're doing it different things. I'm just using that as an example. That's what Bill does, is carpet, VCT, LVT, all those kind of different floorings for us.
Business is changing. I mean, business as normal is over.
Yes.
I don't think we'll ever get back to normal.
And that's what we're trying to find out, is how are other districts, or what are other governmental agencies, how are they handling this? To give us some direction.
Next thing, just a couple quick things. One, I think our schools have been very, especially our high schools, have done a great job in transitioning to the cell phones and also transitioning to using devices. So I know that their own school devices. I know we've had some upset kids and parents as well, but it's allowed us to get back focused on what we need to focus on, which is teaching our students. And so removing some of that distraction. Also, conversation, the words that we don't want to talk about with COVID, just know that when it comes to COVID, we treat that right now as any other illness. And when it comes to that, I know that's brought some even conversation with our local doctor's offices asking, why do we have to have a doctor's note for it to be an excused absence after so many? We still have attendance regulations that we have to follow, and so we don't have an option in that. Kids still have to come to school. We have compulsory attendance, so if they have to go to the doctor, we're sorry for the burden that puts on our health department, but that is the requirement that it puts on the health department. Our job is to educate, and that's what our focus is going to be on. With growth, I want to give you an idea, so I'll send you this other staffing report. I'll send you the staffing reports every day like I did yesterday. We are today sitting at 49,834 students. So I'm sure that will, I'm hoping that drops some. That's a little elevated because if we have students right now that we aren't necessarily, if they're registered with us, we already have them in the system. We have students that we call no-shows who are still on our roster that we haven't dropped off our roster yet because they haven't shown up in another district or we haven't gotten withdrawal paperwork. So I would imagine that would still drop some. But from May of 2022, we are now up 720 students. And so again, I envision that dropping a couple hundred. I'd be shocked if we didn't add 500 kids though. I mean, I don't think we'll drop another 220 kids to get 500 kids growth from May to right now. So continuing that trend of where we were last year of adding the 2,000 students. Update on our positions, we right now have 26 certified positions that are open. 8 of those are special education. And so that is, as we've talked about, one of the areas that we are not allowed to do waivers or permits for, which is definitely a struggle. Same thing with classified. We have 21 special education classified positions. So these are students, or these are positions that may be in inclusion, may be in structured setting, could be behavior positions. We have other positions, and no, when I tell you that certified position of 26, that doesn't incorporate some of those that we're still waiting on, and that doesn't incorporate schools that, for example, chose to use the extended contract that the board approved for, let's say, math positions. If they chose to have their own teachers teach that, that's not incorporated because at this point, we're not going to find another math teacher, so we are paying our teachers to teach that. These are actual positions we're trying to hire right now. That doesn't mean we don't have other openings. I know of just 3 high schools for custodians. Riverdale, Laverne, and Siegel have more than 10 together custodian positions. That's a huge issue with us, where we never want to have a classroom. We've done a great job, and this board's done a great job of supporting different ways to fund those classroom positions. As you guys have talked about, we're struggling with classified staff. I mean, it's absolutely a weakness. To look at celebrations, I feel like we definitely need to look at celebrations. We have a lot of positive momentum. I was able to go to each school and talk to each school the first week, and so that was great to talk to each faculty. Our instruction department did an awesome job launching our parent guides. It's something we've had on the forefront, and Dr. Chastain, within 6 weeks, was able to get it done in what I was trying to do in 2 years. So great job, Dr. Chastain, in getting that accomplished, because it's been on my to-do list every time. So instruction department appreciate that. And test scores, you have a copy of our test scores with you. It says District Evaluation Composites. So this is just a first picture of kind of where we are. We don't have all of it released yet, but this is unembargoed. We are a level 5 district again, so that is something to celebrate. We have definitely dropped a little bit in some areas, but you'll see, and just to kind of go over this, it says overall is a 5. That number, 8.29, basically anything over a 2 is a level 5, and that means a kid improved more than 2% over the year before. And so our students overall did great. You'll see literacy and numeracy is a 5, which is ELA and math. Literacy by itself is a 5. Numeracy by itself is a 4, which still means above expectation, but not quite to that 5 level. You'll see 2 science. That is a weakness. That was a weakness statewide. That is something that we'll continue to work on. The assessment changed several years ago, and then that has also just been an area that is much more rigorous for our students. And in social studies, you'll see is a 5 as well. And just below that, just so you see what all this report contains, this is every test that we give, 3-8, EOC, high school, and then the very bottom tells you what those numbers represent. So for us as a district, again, rules for determining effectiveness level, that level 5, that you're the most effective, and your significant evidence that the district students make more growth than expected. And so that is where we expect to be and where we want to be every single year. The last couple of things that I want to go over is financial, because this is something we will do going forward. You have a 4 or 5 page document that just says template name LGC, and it says Fund 141 at the top. We've had some discussion around what can the board do. It's the larger one, not the 2-pager. It's the one that's 5 or 6 pages. Yep. This, really the first page is the one that you wanted to look at, but we just included the others. We had some discussion over what could we do for our schools from a board perspective. Is there any funds to be able to provide cake, food, any type of celebration? This is what shows our board. You guys have seen this with the budget process, but I thought it was good for you to see. And that would come from $499, and you'll see there's nothing in that line. So as we move forward in the next couple years, we will look to add some of those. The main thing that I wanted you to look at was, and we will make a habit of doing this every board meeting, or at least once a month, is the 2-page document. This shows you an overall, the very first one is what our revenues and expenditures are. You see the different ways that we are getting our money, so that you'll see the budget estimate, how much of it in that second column have we actually accrued. These numbers are going to be very small this time of the year because we haven't received a lot of our funding. You'll see what we estimate every month, or an average month, and that first one, like property tax, for example, we haven't received that yet. We're in August, so we haven't received a payment for that yet. That usually comes later in the year. But the second page looks at our revenues versus our expenditures. You'll see across the top our budget estimate. So for this year, we are estimating to bring in $463 million. That then goes to show that we're actually in a $27 million deficit for this school year. We knew part of that to look at our deferred maintenance, and then what percent of the budget have we already used. We've used 5%. If you look to the bottom, looking at the bottom, you'll see what percentage of the budget have we actually used by every line item. A couple that I just wanted to point out is if you look at 72-110 attendance, we've used 26% of this budget, and this is what we'll really highlight as we look forward every month, is that we can look at these. Attendance deals with registration, Skyward, that's going to be elevated this time of the year because of that expenditure is all at the forefront. Another one to look at is technology. So technology, we of course are looking at devices from the year before. If you look at Board of Education, we are looking at 15%. We pay our dues and as soon as the school year starts over for our allocations, and then we have the conference at the very beginning of the year. If we are looking at human resources personnel, you'll see 20%. That just goes with the new hiring and some of the things we do with background checks, all of those different items, so that's going to be a little bit higher. And then I believe maintenance is the other one, and that involves summer, waxing, all the different things that we do. So we'll make it a habit of just going over some of these every month so that you can see just kind of where we are, and it gives us a good idea of what lines are we not expending our funds and what lines may we have some movement for. So, and last, I just want to thank you guys as a board. You guys have done an amazing job in supporting me and developing the camaraderie that we've had, and I look forward to working with you guys in different capacities that will be leaving us and welcoming our new board members as well. So I've enjoyed it. Reminds me of being a principal again, just at a lot different perspective. So seriously, thank you.
We appreciate all the information. Thank you. Any questions or comments, members of the board? Is there any general discussion items this evening?
I have a question.
Yep.
I've brought several EAs have reached out to me wanting to know when the SPED stipend of $1,000 is coming. Are they going to be paid that in their first check, or will they have
It's the end of the school year. It's the end of the year.
end of the school
Yep.
year?
It's the end of the year.
Okay.
Because each one of those, I believe the way that we had, and Brian, that's correct, is the end of the school year, isn't it? Yeah, it's the end of the year, and each one of those has to be hand-entered by our payroll department, and that has stipulations based on when they work and how much long they work for the fund. Yeah, but it is the end of the year.
Thank you.
Okay, any other?
I've got one comment, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Smyrna Ready Mix, y'all sent them a postcard, sent them a thank you card. The field at Smyrna High School is phenomenal. There's going to be an event there Friday night. We got an email at 6 o'clock. I guess they're going to do a ribbon cutting, and the field is phenomenal. So thank you, Smyrna Ready Mix, for the field.
Speaking of that, what blows my mind is that they're actually hosting a game on that tonight, a middle school game. I cannot believe the high school let the middle school host a game before the high school did. I just saw it on Twitter and blew my mind. So
I knew they
kudos
were
to
having
Dr.
one, but I knew
Sutherland,
we had a
because
board
that is
meeting,
not
so.
something I think I ever would have done. So
That's good sharing.
They're
that
generous.
is amazing
They're very-
sharing. But
Yeah, they're very generous.
like it was one of those on Twitter that you see and you go, I
Yes.
can't believe they're doing that.
Yes.
But good for them.
It's beautiful, it's a beautiful field.
Any other comments this evening? Okay, we want to thank all the staff for being here. Thank everybody for a wonderful start to a school year. There's been some calls, some questions. Transportation has been the most calls I've received. And then, of course, COVID has been the other thing. So thank you to everybody, our teachers, our administrators. It certainly takes a village. We appreciate you all. If there's no other business, we are adjourned.